we're on Lamed Zayin. Towards the bottom. So there are these portals in time of infinity, within which it's appropriate to work on the midah of Keter, which is itself humility and greatness. It's like an aperture, we said, also between the lower realms of creation in the lower parts of the spheros, which are a greater degree of tzimtzum. The Keter is a connection between that and the higher realm of Ein Sof. So you have space, so you have kind of islands of time, or islands in creation, which are also like these portals between tzimtzum and infinity, in which it's appropriate to act according to the midah of Keter. Other times, no. Right now, he's working on these, what I'm calling portals. So one of them was Shabbos. That's what we discussed yesterday. It's really, like this portal in time, which gives you an added venue to connect to the infinity of God in a greater way than is normally possible. But there are others as well. And that's what we're going to work on now, in Lamed Zayin. Therefore, a person on Shabbos and on Yomim Tovim, the festivals, and also on Yom Kippur, which he mentions here as being separate than the other Yomim Tovim, even though it itself is certainly a Yom Tov. It's a holiday. But the difference between Yom Kippur and the other holidays is that the other holidays are enjoyed partially through eating and drinking, cohabitating, elevating the things of the mundane world into the realm of the infinite. Yom Kippur is refraining from all of those things. But it's still, of course, a very holy day. And it's a day which is about atonement and the receiving of divine mercy. And certainly that fits in with what the authors told us earlier about Keter being the origin for the Yud Gimel Midos of Rachamim. So that Yom Kippur itself is like Keter. Yom Kippur itself is Shabbat Shabbaton, the Torah says. It's the Shabbat of Shabbos. So it's an even higher and elevated degree of Shabbos itself. And therefore, arguably, Yom Kippur as a Yom Tov is even a higher degree of Keter than Shabbos itself. And we do find that the whole theme of initially Rosh Hashanah and culminating Yom Kippur is Malchut Shemaim, is Malchus. Right? And Malchus, of course, is connected to Keter. It's the crowning of God. That's the Keter. It's the it's like the crowning glory of God. That's Yom Kippur.
How many days are between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur?
How many?
I'm guessing 10, like this year.
Very interesting. Yeah. Very interesting. Well, certainly Rosh Hashanah does talk about, Malchus, the kingship. That's the lower sphere. You could argue that it goes up and up and up until, right? Yom Kippur is Keter, and we do conclude Yom Kippur with, with the statement, Hashem hu Elokim, Hashem hu Elokim, Hashem hu Elokim, Hashem 7 times, and then we say Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. That's the final coronation of God, accompanied by the trumpet, the shofar, the long blast, the shofar, the tekiah gedola, representing the culmination of the coronation of God, which is Keter. So Yom Kippur is certainly relevant for this whole discussion. So that's true regarding these portals in time, which would be Shabbos and the holidays, and including Yom Kippur. That would be in time, but also in place or in creation. Ubeshas tefillah, during prayer. V'shos esek Torah, all while learning Torah. She'enan shos gvuros, All of these times are times when there are no gevuros. There should be no dinim. There should be no judgments. Yom Kippur is called the Day of Atonement. It certainly culminates a period of judgments. But since it culminates in Keter, and Keter is the Yud Gimel Midos of Rachamim, and we do say in the conclusion of Yom Kippur, in the Ne'ilah service, right, the 13 attributes, Hashem, Hashem, Kel Racham V'Chanun, again and again and again, blasting away up to Keter, in order to nullify on the lower level any manifestation of Keter and Din, but rather it should be reverted back to its source, Kulo Rachamim. It should be all mercy, divine mercy. So these are times, and so also during prayer, and certainly during Torah study, where literally when a person is learning Torah, speaking words of Torah, our sources say that God, as it were, is literally mouthing the words of Torah as he's speaking. Shir Shirim says, Neshekeni b'neshikos pihu. He kisses me with the kisses of his mouth. Ki tovim dodecha miyain. Because your lovely things are more beloved to me than wine. And so it is understood to be referring to Torah, that when a person is learning Torah, he's engaged in a type of kiss, where just as two lovers are kissing, there's an exchange of vapor. So when a person's learning God's Torah, there's an exchange of spirituality between he and God. And Torah study, therefore, is considered to be a very beloved and loving experience of having a type of spiritual intimacy with God. And therefore, this is also a wonderful time of chesed, where there should be no dinim, no anger, no judgments, no being particular or indignant or proud or jealous, but the Torah learning should all be done in the spirit of a loving and sharing union. These are times of shos golui haratzon ha'elyon. These are times of the revelation of the will on high. And if ratzon is the will of God before Keter to create, which it might be something else. But if it is referring to that, so then these are times when a person should be penetrating upward through Keter in order to try as best as possible connect to the Ratzon Hashem. Like it says, Kud Shabrichu V'Raisa Chadu, that God, the Holy One, blessed be He, Kud Shabrichu V'Raisa and the Torah are one. They're inextricably bound. And the Torah itself is an expression of the will of God. They're all one. So if a person is learning Torah with the right intention, he's literally engaged with his beloved, as it were, in order to be brought into his bedchamber through the door of Keter into the realm of the Ratzon Hashem. And literally, I don't know what the word is, but to become connected with the oneness of God. And this will establish all of his deos, where I think he might mean here midos, meaning all of the lower spheros. They will all be established through this connection to God that takes place through either the context of Shabbos, or Yom Tov, or Yom Kippur, or Tefillah, or Limud Torah, learning Torah. Ushar shos ishtamesh b'midos inishaos, but the rest of the hours of his day, meaning when it's not these portals in time or in circumstance, then he should use the others of these attributes that have been established properly through the connections that's been made in these in these portals. Ushar shos ishtamesh b'midos inishaos la'avodas Hashem. Then the rest of these hours outside of those portals, he can now use those midos which have been established properly through the connections that he's made during these portals. Lo hamaguna mehen, and use them for good and not for bad. So, for example, if you take the midah of chesed, which is loving kindness, or gvura, which is strength, as just two examples. Chesed to the right, Gvura to the left. where Hesed is generally positive and Gvura is, perhaps generally negative. The point is that if a person has connected to the Ratzon Hashem through Keser in any of these circumstances of Shabbos, Yom Tov, Yom Kippur, Tefillah, or Limud Torah, what that would mean is that outside of those times, when it is appropriate to live Tzimtzum, then he will be living Tzimtzum in a balanced, proper way, so that Chesed is truly expressed positively and not negatively, because sometimes giving can be inappropriate. If you're giving something which is appropriate, or to somebody which is inappropriate, or at a time which is inappropriate, that giving is not something good, it's something negative. Right? And the same thing regarding Gvura, or strength. Even though strength is something which is good, when you're exerting, let's say, control over yourself for something good, and not, for example, exerting control over others, not for their benefit, but to manipulate them, and things like that. So that's what he's getting at, therefore, that when a person utilizes these portals correctly, it will affect the rest of his midos, so that when he is living tzimtzum, as it is the will of Hashem that we do, live tzimtzum, then he'll at least be living it properly. She'ein lo et lishlot ba'adam ela l'ra'asoi kasher nevayar. I think what he means is that these negative aspects of these attributes are really not given sway over a person except during these times of tzimtzum. So it's there that he has to be particularly careful to maintain the balance. Vaz kasher yishtamesh b'midos elu, and therefore then when he uses these attributes properly, hiyeh nachon uvatuach sheyiftach ha'makaros elyonim, then he can be rest assured that using them properly, or that their application will result in an opening up of the sources of bounty and blessing for a person, and not, God forbid, the opposite, where if he uses these attributes negatively, they would actually be harmful to himself and to others. Like we said, in two simple examples, either doing good in a bad way, or exerting control or power in a negative way. But if he's using them with the proper balance, then you can rest assured that even if he's not in these apertures of Keser, he's actually living within Tzimtzum. He's still living aligned, so that those actions in Tzimtzum will still bring about an influx of bracha, of blessing from Keser, and not, God forbid, the opposite.
So you need Keter to recalibrate.
Yes. Yeah, very nice. So connecting to Keter during these portals of Shabbos and Yom Tov or Tefillah, these are all ways of constantly, kind of like you said, recalibrating or restarting or rejuvenating, yes, in order to maintain the proper balance. That's a very, very wonderful idea. But if a person spends too much of his life without Shabbos, without Yom Tov, without Yom Kippur, without prayer, and without Torah, so he's bound over time to be eroded to the extent where his midos are going to take on more and more of a negative manifestation, and then he'll be a conduit, this person, for the influx of negativity into the world and not positivity. And our exertion in the physical, finite, mundane realm of tzimtzum during the week would tend to generate that result. If it's not retracted, if it's not refracted back into Shabbos, for example, once weekly, or the holidays on their seasons, or regularly through Torah study or through prayer. Okay, very good. Let's stop here. We'll try and continue tomorrow.